Hello, this is Joe Polish, president of Piranha Marketing and founder of the Genius Network interview series, and you're about to hear one of my Genius Network interviews, and I just want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this, and I hope you find it very useful. If you want to find out more information about some of the interviews and resources that can help you in your business, you can go to www.joepolish.com. And we have a Joe Polish Recommends section with all kinds of resources and vendors and services and products that we recommend that can help you in your business. And also for more useful interviews and a whole list of other people that I've interviewed, you can go to www.geniusnetwork.com. Thanks and enjoy the interview. Hello, this is Joe Polish. I want to welcome you to another edition of Genius Network. This is going to be a very fun interview. I'm sitting across in his studio to my very funny, handsome friend, Mr. Garrett Gunderson. And me and Garrett, we actually spend a lot of time together. We brainstorm a lot. Very successful guy. I'm going to get the bio out of the way. And first off, Garrett, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to this interview and seeing how we can hold it together for an hour or however long this might be.
Just to try to sound really serious.
Yeah.
Now, well, let me. This will be the only portion of the interview I read anything. So here's a short bio of Garrett. Garrett Gunderson is a highly successful entrepreneur who started his first company at the age of 15 and became a multimillionaire by the age of 26. Garrett is a winner of Utah's Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award. He has founded several prosperous companies, including an Inc. 500 company that was named the Utah Fast 50 program as one of the top companies in the state for entrepreneurial spirit, innovative business tactics, and skyrocketing revenue growth. Garrett co-authored the highly acclaimed Curriculum for Wealth series and is the author of the revolutionary financial book Killing Sacred Cows, a New York Times bestseller. Garrett coaches large groups of business owners and financial service professionals nationwide and is a sought-after speaker and personal finance coach. Well, Garrett, you do a lot of other stuff. So what other things are you up to that are not mentioned here in this bio?
Just finished a Nightingale product.
Nightingale Conant?
Yeah, Nightingale Conant. Thanks to you. You helped kind of push that over the line. I mean, they tested me before you ever contacted them because they saw an article I did, or a cover of Publishers Weekly that was in 08 saying, are Americans risking their futures on 401ks? I mean, I said it before the kind of demise. They ran a test. I tested number 2. You called, and they're like, oh, Joe Paul. Oh, yeah, we're going to put Garrett on there. And so I became a Nightingale author, and that's a great program, New Rules to Get Rich. You're actually going to be at an event for a couple days with me called the Business Fast Track, where I get kind of a mastermind of 25 or fewer business owners, help them to really integrate certain models for their own business to maximize the different types of capital. We'll talk about the different types of capital on this interview, I'm sure. And, I'm out there speaking on a regular basis. I'm speaking at InvestFest in a couple of days. Hang out with my kids every now and again,
Yeah. Well, also, we went to Vietnam recently, and we hung out there for 9 days, and that was quite an interesting event. We had John Butcher and his wife, Missy. John owns the company Precious Moments and Lifebook. And then Tim Ferriss, the author of 4-Hour Workweek, was with us. And
I'm about to do recording with John Butcher for the financial portion of that program.
Okay, which would be awesome.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have Matt Mullenweg, who's the founder of WordPress blog. So, we hang out with a lot of interesting people, do some interesting stuff. But by far, the most boring thing in Vietnam was the water puppet show. But we'll talk about that later. Now, for serious stuff.
We've saved people some real pain if they ever go to Vietnam.
Exactly. If you've listened to this interview and you just skipped the puppet show, with the water puppet show, then you'll be doing yourself a big favor. All right. Well, now what I'd like to accomplish in this interview is for all of the listeners, literally give them some perspective about money. And you have some of the most innovative perspectives and methodologies at looking at not only what money is, what capital is, what to do with it, how to invest it. And I think by the end of this interview, the perspective that we can deliver to the listeners could absolutely change their life in a very positive direction. The majority of people that will be listening are entrepreneurs. And so we understand all of the work and effort that you put into building and growing and creating value in your business. So we're really going to speak to entrepreneurs because I know you're a huge supporter of entrepreneurism. So, well, first off, one of the things in your book, Killing Sacred Cows, you talk about the 401k hoax. And I was going to ask you this question later on, but I'll ask you right now. Are 401ks a hoax?
Yeah, I think that they're pretty much a hoax and a scam, and it's interesting because 60 Minutes, I happen to be flipping channels, caught 60 Minutes, and here it is a year and a half after my book came out, and 60 Minutes is finally saying, you know what, there's 12 unaccounted for fees in most 401k plans. Here's the results of people putting money in a 401k. They don't know where their money is. I mean, they don't know who's managing it, what stocks they're holding. They don't know how they're going to get to their money in the future. They think they're getting tax savings, yet at the same time, they're being told that the plan's going to be successful. So I always think that's kind of an interesting dilemma. How are you going to have less taxes in the future if the plan works? If the plan's successful, you should be in a higher tax bracket. And why would anyone want to be in a lower tax bracket? It's almost like saying, plan for failure. Plan to have less money in the future. And we've seen with the performance of the stock market that people's internal confidence has actually gone down because of a performance of an asset that they had no control over, no influence, and definitely no passion around. So it's almost like people are funding other people's dreams, other people's companies, before they're even funding their own. And they're putting money in a place where they have no control or understanding. And so it's these philosophies of high risk equal high return, or that you're in it for the long haul. And if you get into a plan and you don't know how you're going to get out, how you would actually save taxes, how that's going to benefit you today and the future, I consider that a hoax if everyone's doing it and you just feel comfortable in it.
Right.
And it's demolished people. They've lost hope, and because they've lost confidence, they've forgotten that they're the greatest asset. I mean, your ability to produce, your ability to create value is your greatest asset. It's not a 401k. A 401k is actually making your life less efficient, less productive, and taking resources that you could utilize with your knowledge to create more value in the marketplace and instead speculate and give it to someone else. So this is part of the hoax. There's also 100% government control. They can change the rules of the plan. They've got restrictions of when you can get to the money, how you can get to the money, if there's penalties, and ultimately you are eventually going to have to pay tax. So I know people that are, later on in life in the so-called retirement years that won't take money out of the plan because they don't want to pay tax. So if you hate paying tax today, what makes you think you're going to hate paying it any less in the future? And it's not really a tax deferral. It's just an income deferral because you put money in a plan that says FBO. FBO stands for benefit of, and then it might have your name, Joe Polish, meaning that you have no control over the stipulations and they could change at any time, and you don't know what's going to happen in the future, and you're relying upon whatever the government feels like at the moment. So it's kind of like, what if I said, hey, Joe, I've got a great business for you. Here's the deal. You put your money into the business, and money, I'll put a little bit of money into it, but if you get out of the business early, I want more. I'm going to take some extra from you, and the percentage that you're going to own of this business in the future is really dependent upon my economic circumstance in the future. I'll just tell you, and I'm going to tell you anything that you can or can't do. I'm going to limit your options. I mean, this is really what a 401k is, and no business owner would ever run their business the way that they put money into a 401k. They would never do these things, but it's just because enough people are doing it that it's like, oh, I guess this is what you're supposed to do. Look, it's a complete myth. It's a complete fallacy, and it's one of the biggest hoaxes that's been perpetuated upon the American people.
Well, what's interesting about what you just said about it's just what people think they should do. I mean, that's how a lot of behaviors and a lot of things that people do. It's the same with going to colleges and universities,
Sure.
It's like, well, how do you become successful? You get a college degree. Well, a lot of people have learned that path, doesn't have the security and the results that other paths
Right.
possibly do.
Go to school, get good grades, get a secure job. What is that secure job, really? How does that really provide financial security?
Right. Well, okay, so what does someone do? What's the alternative?
Well, my belief is that everyone's an entrepreneur. Yeah, I really think every single person in the world's an entrepreneur. Yet we get trained, taught, and educated not to be entrepreneurial, to instead get into situations where we don't do exactly what we like, but what we hear or think or feel is safe. But with the economy over the past couple of years, how could this even be a philosophy that people still hold on to? Because what safety is there in doing something that you're not expert in, something you have no passion in, something that you're not getting better at, but you just do because it's a good corporate job? I mean, when I graduated college, it was 1999 as I was graduating. The economy was amazing. I was joking. I can't remember if it was 9 job offers or 11 job offers, but the 2 that my university was promoting me to take, and even my grandfather sat down with me and my mom, and they were like, Merrill Lynch, that's a huge name. Oh, that would be great. And Arthur Andersen, that's a big name. That would be great for the university. Merrill Lynch is totally screwed right now. Arthur Andersen turned into Anderson and then turned into nothing because of the whole Enron debacle, and that was supposed to be my security. I didn't have any passion for accounting. I actually didn't even know half of the terms that they were using in the interview. I was just a good interviewer. That was basically why I got the job offer.
Right.
They were telling me they were going to pay me $65,000, which out of our university for an accounting job was the highest offer that there had been to that point. Within 2 years, I had made $65,000 in one single transaction, one single client. And working for Anderson would have been at least 70-hour weeks, if not longer. And yet this is what people feel is secure when those companies go away overnight because of actions that you have no control over that someone else is doing. I believe everyone's an entrepreneur because we all have clients. Whether you're a stay-at-home mom, you know who your clients are the kids that you have. So it's how do you use your abilities best to serve, to provide value, to create solutions, and to help them grow and learn. If you have a boss, that's your greatest client. Is that the client that you want? If it's not, don't complain about it. Find a better client, find a better situation, but people are afraid of their own success. They're afraid of being reliant upon the only thing that creates real financial security, which is our ability to create value. So if we're sitting there hoping someone else is going to give us a handout, feeling entitled to some sort of benefit, and how many people take jobs, by the way, because they say there's good benefits? There's a 401k match. Who cares about the match? When do you actually get it? What value does it actually bring? Most people lost every dollar of their match in poor performance in the stock market or fees inside the plan. Health benefits. Those things are getting chopped up all the time. There's employers considering cutting back or doing whatever they can to minimize costs that way, or they're just doing it to keep pace. I would rather just get paid. Hey, Garrett, here's your money. Do what you want with it. And I want to be paid by value creation, not time and effort. Punching a clock and going to work, having someone else tell you when to go, what to do, and kind of almost this atmosphere where people are just kind of in a routine and they don't love what they do. It's like hard to get out of bed, but they're thinking, oh, I can retire one day. And that's the dream, is some retirement where they think then they're going to travel, they're going to flip a switch, then they're going to spend time with their family, then they're going to do all the things that bring happiness. That doesn't happen. Yet they're sold this bill of goods, and it's not working out, and they're limiting their life. They're not using their abilities. They're not enjoying things. But it's all in the name of financial security, which is a false sense of security that's absolutely been exposed. So if people want security, they better find where they have superior ability. You know, as Dan Sullivan calls it, unique ability. I would say sole purpose, where they find the highest context. What is it that they would be engaged in? What is it they'd really want to do? And how can they get paid for doing that? And for many people, that's a harder path up front because you have to figure it out. You might have to work a little bit harder initially. But it's a much easier path once you get in alignment with it. It's a much easier path to go maybe get a job at first, but it becomes much harder as time goes on. If that job isn't something that you have, superior expertise or passion or ability. So the only financial security that really exists is our ability to deliver value to other people.
Well, can you define value creation? Can you define what delivering value even means?
First of all, value is perspective. And it's not our perspective. Our value is our perspective. But you and I don't value things exactly the same, right, Joe? There's certain things that you might spend money on that'd be like, I wouldn't spend that money. Or there might, vice versa, there might be things I spend money on, you're like, I don't know why Garrett would spend that money. But that's the beauty of this world, is that there's a divinity to the diversity. And because we value things differently, it gives us an opportunity to exchange. So one example of value is you have certain abilities. You have abilities in interviewing, you have abilities in marketing, you have abilities in connecting, you have abilities in putting on tremendous events, you have abilities in just making people feel comfortable very quickly. I mean, it doesn't need to be about you. I said enough good things right there.
No, keep talking about me. I like that.
But you have these abilities that other people absolutely don't have. And so they have a choice. This is the choice that they're faced with. One is they can envy you. They can envy you and be frustrated that you have those abilities or want to be you. And that is going to be a destructive situation. You know, it's not a good situation for them to view that. So on the other hand, if they look and stop discounting where they're great, because, you know, I've seen you discount where you're great in some situations because it's natural to you or you enjoy it or it just, you know, it's what you want to do. And it's not that you're like demeaning about it. You're just like, oh, yeah, I did that. I'm like, dude, you know, that was phenomenal. You know how many people don't know how to do that?
Right.
But what's great is there's plenty of people that you hire on your team, people that you work with, people that you take advice from, people that you learn from that have a different passion than you, but what they know is very valuable for you to learn. So they can condense it. They can give it to you where it makes sense for you through conversation, through the books that they put out there, through the information products that they put out there, through the interviews. And the value for you is it allows you to focus on what you want to do most. And so you'll gladly give them money, which in finance, people think, oh, minimize expenses. Well, guess what? You minimize expenses, you minimize people. I say find productive expenses. Find expenses like when I pay to be in your group, I know I'm going to make more money because of what I learn and who I associate with than the money that I spend. That's a productive expense. Most people only think of expenses as destructive. But how do we ever enjoy or utilize money without expenses? It's kind of like an employee. If we treat an employee as an expense, then it is as such. But if we treat it as a great investment and we see, are they producing more than they consume, that is a productive expense because it gives us access to knowledge, income, ability that we may not otherwise have. And so value really comes down to exchange, where we have inefficiencies. Inefficiencies because I have superior ability in some areas that you don't, so there's a reason for us to exchange. I'm willing to study finance to a degree that you don't want to study it, but then I can condense it and make it applicable specifically to you, or put it in a book that you can read. And so the bottom line is value is perspective. So what does someone else value? The second thing is value creation comes from solving other people's problems, serving other people in a capacity that they want to be served, or deepening their learning or their experience to make life simpler or better. That's value creation.
That's fantastic. What a great description. Well, what does all of this have to do with making money? I mean, it's obvious for some people listening, but others would be like, well, Garrett, where's the best place to invest my money? I mean, you kind of...
Right. It's obvious that first and foremost and always ongoingly, the best investment is in yourself. Now, hell, you'll hear self-development people talk about this all the time, but I'm a finance guy. That's what I started 11 years ago. I started in financial services, and I saw how many myths were being promoted, how I was being awarded for promoting scarcity, telling people about retirement, telling people to save money for the future at the expense of experiences today, and that everything was about deferral, which was insane. So people have this confusion around money based upon these myths, like the confusion that people think that they should build a nest egg, that they should build net worth, that they should accumulate, that they should take high risk to get high returns. We don't run the rest of our life high risk equals high return. Entrepreneurs seem to, right? Entrepreneurs, some people go, Joe, that seems real risky, but not when it's your ability. Not when you have influence over it. Not when you're willing to be relentless and being unreasonable. And what I mean by unreasonable is say, yeah, there's plenty of reasons why this wouldn't work, but you know what? I'm going to get a trip to Necker Island. I'm going to donate $500,000 one year and $500,000 the next year to Virgin Unite. I'm going to become buddies with Sir Richard Branson. We're going to have mastermind. We're going to have 35 hours of video of brainstorming. That's unreasonable. And most people would have told you, Joe, that is impossible. You can't do that. Because do you have the $1 million just sitting in a bank account? No. But you know what? It's the people that are the most resourceful that have the most resources. Not the other way around. It's not like someone handed you money and said, here's a bunch of resources, go be productive. You took the most precious resources, which were human ingenuity, ideas, creativity, connection, which is your mental capital, and you translated that to relationships, to people. So the more we take our ideas and our mental capital and we use it to create value for other people, that is the equation for wealth. So here's the equation for money. Mental capital plus relationship capital equals more financial capital. Said very simply, dollars follow value. So in the world of cause and effect, value creation is the cause, money is the effect or the byproduct. And too often people are so excited about the receipt of money that they're chasing money and they're missing value creation. They're missing real productivity. But what you got to find out is, what do you really value? Not just offer value. But what's great is when I know what you really are looking for and what I can contribute, then I can go to work on that. And a lot of that is asking questions and just listening. As I say, as I just talk like crazy right now. But if you just ask people questions and you really listen, and you listen for connections, what you do is you listen, oh yeah, this person will help you, or oh no, I can help you here or there. Now you've really found value for people because they don't know how to get that on their own. They don't necessarily have the mental capital. So the way that you're going to increase your money situation is increase your knowledge first and foremost, the right knowledge, the knowledge where you want to be an expert. Even if you spent 5 minutes a day, it would only take a year before you'd surpass most people in the field that have been there for 30 years because they have 1 year of experience 30 years over.
Right.
But if you remain fresh in it, I mean, 1 hour a day, and it's going to happen even quicker. And it would be amazing, and especially if it's something that you're excited about. But if you store it there, it's just potential. And I think potential is absolutely meaningless. Hell, we all have plenty of potential. Little Johnny has plenty of potential, right? Everyone talks about little Johnny that pisses on everything and screws everything up as having all the potential in the world. But what we're really concerned about is how do we translate that potential, our knowledge, into real wisdom, into real action, right? So not attraction. I think attraction is 1/3 of the equation. I think attraction without action is a recession. I think it must be intention. What do you intend to do? What is the outcome what's the result? Plus the attention to that, and then the inspired action that says, here's how I'm going to add value to the world. That's how you get production. And when you do that for people, you translate the mental capital, your knowledge, to solve problems, create solutions, add service, simplify someone's life, take away their pain, add more pleasure. You're going to have more financial capital, but you can't focus on the financial capital first. Because if you think money is the problem, that's the problem. Not the money, it's how you think about it. Money is merely a tool that was made by men to be more efficient with exchange. So we don't have to trade pigs for carpentry, and we don't have to trade, wheat for, someone to babysit. It's just a man-made tool. But it's really showing, hey, are you creating value? If you don't have any deception or coercion, you're going to have more money the more value you create. So if you can find that, if you can find where you really create unique value, and you love doing that, and then the key is something like what you do, you've got to market, because there's plenty of people that are great at marketing, have mediocre products, and they kill the people that have great products and no marketing.
Yeah, see it all day long.
You got to be good at translating your knowledge into to solving issues for people. That's the key. People are the only assets. And if you view people as the assets and relationships as assets, you're going to make deposits into relationship capital. Just like when we make deposits into a bank, it increases our financial capital and we can write checks in the future. Well, imagine someone meeting you and immediately they're trying to take from you. They haven't made any deposits into the relationship capital. If they start taking from you immediately, you're like, this person's consuming my energy and my time. I'm not going to answer their phone call. I'm not going to go out to eat with them. We've talked about these people before.
Yeah.
But what about those people that you're excited to see them call because you know they're a value creator? You know they're going to add value, and that, part of that's having fun, part of it's joking around, part of it's creating some business ideas, part of it's expanding what you're up to. Those are people that you want to take the phone call, and that's the test.
Yeah. Well,
are you the person people want to take a phone call from?
Right, and it's real easy to kind of, from each person who's a battery charger and who's a battery drainer. Well, the problem with some of what you're saying here, Garrett, is your complete sheer lack of enthusiasm. And I would appreciate it if you would pull it up a few notches, because I really want the listeners to get tremendous value here. No, this is great. You said a lot of fantastic things. One that really struck me is that people that are the most resourceful have the most resources. And one of the challenges with people becoming entrepreneurs, and what you're saying that everyone is an entrepreneur, again, Dan Sullivan was the first person that I heard about, the originator of the term entrepreneur, which is a French guy, Jean-Baptiste Say, in the 1800s, said that an entrepreneur is an individual that takes resources from a lower level of productivity to a higher level. So every human being out there that is capable of taking anything from one area to a higher level is operating in an entrepreneurial fashion. In creating value. And so everyone does have that ability. The challenge with a lot of people is all of the obstacles. Some of them are real obstacles. The majority of them are mental. These self-imposed limitations.
Entitlement, scarcity, victimhood, loathing. I mean, fear, doubt, worry. Those are the real issues for people.
Yes. Well, first off, define what resourcefulness. I'd love to hear your definition of that.
So, we are born with a balance sheet, since I'm a financial guy, right?
Yeah. And by the way, we're going to talk about money, and all of this is absolutely
totally translates to money.
No, it completely does. And I think a lot of people are like, wow, this is interesting perspective here. But again, that's what I wanted to get from you is perspective. Right. So this is perfect.
So we're all born with a balance sheet. And a balance sheet is simply assets and liabilities. The problem is when we're babies, we have tons of liabilities, right? Because it's like if someone doesn't take care of us, we die.
Right.
And so they're helping bring their resources and resourcefulness to take care of those liabilities. But what that really means is time goes on the one side, assets are things that add more value, they contribute, they build equity, they could be converted into cash eventually if we're talking about a financial thing. There are talents, our abilities, our mental capital, our creativity. All those things are assets. Our liabilities are kind of like our weaknesses, those things that we don't have, that we don't have passion for, that we don't have necessarily the best ability towards, the fear, the doubt, the worry, the scarcity. So think of assets, even from a mental standpoint, as empowering beliefs. That's an asset, right? You can overcome obstacles, you feel great. Liabilities, on the other hand, are limited beliefs which lead towards poverty. Now, a lot of people want to villainize liabilities and say, oh, liabilities are bad. But there's three types of liabilities. There's destructive liabilities, like, we've all been involved in destructive liabilities at some time. Maybe it was in college. Maybe it was, maybe it was a bad idea, whatever it is. There's consumptive liabilities, which might be buying a TV. We're just consuming. It's not providing like a lot of value to the world, and it's maybe, consuming like even our time, but it's not bad if we're making more than we consume.
Well, I'd like to talk about some of the destructive liabilities that you experienced in college, like the, excessive drinking or, maybe dating too many
chasing
women.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
No, anyway, we don't have to go there. Everyone can identify behaviors that sap them of everything, that cross the moral boundaries.
And the thing is that on this balance sheet of assets and liabilities, we have human life value assets and liabilities, which are the intangible, inherent things to us. And then there's property value, which is cars, houses, financial instruments, the things that are more tangible and seen in the world. And so the more effective we are with our human life value, it's called being a steward of our assets and liabilities, right, the more resources we have. So here's how you're resourceful. You're resourceful when you find out how to capitalize on the assets you have. So creating value for the relationships that coming up with new ideas, anything that allows you to translate to value to the world, that's being resourceful. Okay, and then the second thing, addressing liabilities. That's how you're resourceful. Strategizing the liabilities, that creates resources. So go ahead.
Well, yeah, so break this down too, because one of the things that I think resonates with a lot of people, I've had thousands of people that I've helped with marketing that first off, didn't even know what marketing is. Most of the marketing that's taught in college is image or institutional based.
Right. Not direct response.
It's not direct response. The average business owner, first off, doesn't have anywhere near the budget for brand building and all of the things. And it would be useless if they took that path anyway,
right?
Unless they're a giant corporation.
I fully agree with that. I've learned that from you and applied that on a regular basis. It's amazing how many myths there are in marketing.
Oh, yeah, completely. I mean, the fields of incompetence, the industries that have the highest levels of incompetence are probably psychiatry, advertising, lawyers, and financial advisors.
I was part of that when I started. So
right. And I'm not saying that to bash anyone in those industries. What I'm saying is anyone that is the top of their game in those industries absolutely would agree with that statement. Mm-hmm. And so the point is that it wasn't until I discovered marketing that I learned how to take my assets and the things that I was doing and figuring out how to actually make money from it.
That's being resourceful right there.
Right. And so, for me, the key was learning how to, in a very convincing way, compel people to do business with me versus other people that were offering what was perceived as the same or similar service. I mean, I learned marketing in one of the most interesting industries, which was carpet and upholstery cleaning, and I was good. I delivered a great service. I was, I cared. I didn't use bait and switch advertising. I took care of people. I really wanted to deliver as best of a service as I could provide, and the challenge was I was broke. And I couldn't figure out how to get people to pay me money. So in the resourcefulness that I applied, I learned that, the difference between someone doing business with me and that other person is what is in their own heads, perceived value.
Right. Perception.
Exactly, which you mentioned in the very beginning. And so it wasn't until I started spending time daily, learning about this particular skill, applying it, and voila, I tested it. You know,
right.
I
resourceful without having resources financially at the time.
Right. You know, I have my buddy Dave Kekich, who, you know, we've all read the
right.
Kekich Credos. One of the things is rely more on wit and talent and less on money. And when you don't have any money, you got to rely on wit and talent. And as a matter of fact, I think someone that has wit and talent and resourcefulness is like 100 times more likely to succeed than someone that is just given a pile of money, because if they don't have resourcefulness and skills and direction, they're going to be very promiscuous with the money and they're going to waste it.
Because they were handed it. They don't have the stewardship. They don't have the knowledge. They don't have the mental capital to handle that, and it gets squandered, lost in speculative investments, consumed because they're spending it without understanding the ramifications. I mean, I totally agree with that.
Yeah. Well, okay, I'm going to ask you some questions specifically about money. What I want to do, just because of this thought process we've been on here, for people out there that may listen to this interview, again, most people that are listening are entrepreneurs, but they may want to share this with people in their lives that would say, hey, I think you'd be inspired by Garrett's message here and what he's saying, and I think you're an incredible person, but you've not, you know, created this capital and you've not focused on it, and maybe you undervalue this skill that you have. What are some of the steps that people would take to literally go into business, to start getting paid for what it is they do? Or people that already are in business, how do they go about, you know, just squeezing more juice out of what it is they have?
That's a good question. So someone that's trying to make that transition, I think the first thing that they've got to do is that they've got to focus on themselves. This is interesting, but they've got to make deposits into their confidence. They've got to find things that, you know, it's almost like creating testimonials rather than for the marketplace, testimonials for themselves. So whether that's case studies, whether that's giving some of the services away, starting to really study that. And, you know, and then they start to get some of that experience, and they start to get some of that confidence, because really someone could have all the ability in the world and no confidence, and they're never going to get anything from the marketplace. Because if they don't treat themselves as the greatest asset and make some deposits and focus on them, so this is the simple things that they could do to make that happen. An hour a day to start with, just an hour a day, is get up first thing in the morning, you work out, you study something in the field that you're wanting to go into and that you're going to want to work in, and then you do things like meditate just to calm you and to create some more power. Because as you go out in the day, inevitably, we have all the distractions that would take us away from going and being a business owner if we're not already there, which is, oh, what about the security? What about this? What about that? If you have a 401k, that might be your very ticket to give you a little bit of confidence to say, I have some leeway to start making this transition. Because when you leave your current employer, if you become a business owner, that's a resource that you can now tap into that was locked away. So that's one of the things of confidence. The next thing is go out there and start working with people and start finding ways to learn from mentors that are already doing great things in that field. And what a difference of a mentor and an advisor is. Like people that want to come into my field, you don't want to go learn from someone that's just selling a product. You want to learn from someone that's done things themselves financially, that have learned from their mistakes, that have invested in things, and find out, what did you know? How did you go about figuring this out? And studying them and having them ask questions of you. And then start approaching people. And like I said, just even give some of the services away initially if you don't have the confidence until you see some of the results. Because, you know, I'm working with people right now that aren't in business before, always work for someone, starting to do their own business. And it's like they don't know how to ask for a check. Like, I don't know. Is my service valuable? And it's like, I don't know, go out and do something for someone and then find the scariest person that you wouldn't know how to approach and go talk with them. And let them know what's going on, because if you can overcome that, now you're ready for business. So it's really about deposits in the mental capital and then translating that to some relationships. And then, this is the key, as soon as you've done, it doesn't have to be a lot of case studies, as soon as you've got validation that someone values the work, the real validation, and here's the key step, charge someone. Charge someone anything, but definitely a number that you're a little bit afraid of, that you're a little bit scared of, because you're like, I don't know how to do this. And when they pay you, it'll be amazing to watch how much confidence you gain and how you can start to enter the business world and how much more fun it is to be paid for production rather than time and effort.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Dan Sullivan, our friend Dan at Founder Strategic Coach, says test ideas on check writers, which is always a great piece of advice. Well, You said something in the very beginning. A word on the street is that you referred to as Guru Gunderson.
No.
Like where you teach people to meditate. And, you said work out and, study some area that preferably you're very excited and passionate about. And I cannot emphasize this enough. I mean, I won't talk too much about it. I will just say that if you are not into something, you're not going to derive the resources internally to go through the hard times.
Right. If you're chasing money alone, what you're going to find is, you'll get discouraged, and the liabilities, the obstacles will overcome you. If you're passionate about it, you're going to succeed. And people are like, how in the world did you overcome that?
Yeah, exactly. And then you said meditate, calm your mind, whatever, which is reflect, think about it.
Right.
Now, what's interesting, I was just in Necker Island a couple weeks ago with Branson, like you mentioned, and we were sitting around in a room with the group of people that came on the trip, and Richard, was there, and we're doing some Q&A with Branson, and one of the people asked him, how do you become more productive? And how do you, Richard has, over 300 companies in the Virgin Group, over 50,000 employees, $25 billion a year in revenue. I mean, we're talking an individual that has a lot of stuff to pay attention to. And so it requires you to be really, just to be at that level is just an incredible accomplishment. And he said, work out. He goes, just staying fit and exercising gives you 3 to 4 hours of more productive work per day.
Yeah, you sleep better, you have more energy, you have more clarity.
Yeah, and so, coming from one of the wealthiest people in the world saying working out is going to give you 3 to 4 hours additional every day. That's what he said. We got this on video. Of productive time was an interesting statement. So when you're saying focus on yourself, this is not in a selfish way. This is keeping yourself totally fit.
You can't serve anyone if you haven't taken care of yourself. You've got to say what's going to bring about the best energy and allow you to be proactive rather than reactive. If you get up, you rush to work, things start happening, it's easy for that environment to take over. But it's like putting on armor where those kind of things ping off you. If you work out, you stimulate the mind, and then you really meditate and get clear and you get grounded, the power that you'll have. And that's how you truly invest in yourself. That's truly how you invest in yourself. And the other thing is you said, okay, so someone looking to transition from a job to a business. I gave a couple hints on that. But people that are already in business, how do they take it to a next level? Well, number one, prosperity is not a do-it-yourself game. And it's not a game of looking good. If you're willing to be honest about what's really going on in your business with other key people, with the right people, like a mastermind group, like what you put on, you get in a group like that and you're honest with them, you're going to expand your ideas so rapidly because you tap into all their knowledge, all their resources, maybe even their relationships. They're saying, here, talk to this person. You'll accelerate your business so fast. So I think change your environment. Who are the 5 people that you hang out with most? Are they extraordinarily wealthy? Are they growing? Do they have better futures? Are they doing things that excite you and invigorate you? If not, get another core group. I'm not saying get rid of the others, but get a core group that you're inspired when you're around them, that you think bigger, that they expand you. That will take your business to the next level more than anything. More than a trade show, more than something in your industry, more than having a team meeting or anything like that. It's really about getting your vision expanded, getting your excitement expanded, changing your energy because of that environment. When we went to the inauguration, I happened to just, earlier that month, I was working a lot and I just kind of hit this little bit of a rut where I was doing, someone asked me, well, how much of your time is spent in things that you're totally passionate about? And some weeks I'm like, it was an 80% week. I think that's, near perfect. That week I was like, I don't know, like 35%. That's a huge difference. And then I went to that. And my wife was with me, and she's like, man, I love seeing you around these guys because you guys have expertise in areas I don't. So in those areas, I feel like, man, I'm the least intelligent person in that area. This is the right place for me. I'm going to learn so much from these guys. I'm going to get great connections. I'm going to get good advice, and I can create massive value in the area where I'm in, which will give me additional confidence and satisfaction. And then I come back a person that's charged up, and the energy's felt throughout my team, through the ideas that I'm creating, and we all have that flow. The event that you're coming to, maximizing mental capital, is how do you find the flow of your creation? We all do it differently. Some do it brainstorming one-on-one. Some do it in a focus group. Some do it through meditation. But what is that for you that puts you in the right state so that when you're going out for the day, you're productive. And that translates whether you have an existing business, whether you work for someone else, is when you get that right network and those people that challenge you, man, it just takes you to a different level.
Yeah, and I mean, if people want to know the secret of how guys like me and you do it, I mean, this is one part of it. We sit and we ask a lot of questions. We get involved in discussions. We're part of mastermind groups. I'm attending one that you're doing starting today, later today, because we're up early in the morning here doing this interview. And, you're part of my 25K group.
Right.
And we get around and we have really important discussions about how to, build a much better life, a much better business.
Which means I don't posture around you at this point. We have a relationship. There's no posturing, because if I posture, I block you out and I don't create value. If I talk too much, I don't create enough value. It's listening. I mean,
but you do talk too much, Garrett.
Right. But we know other people that talk a whole lot more.
I really need you to stop this right now. No, actually, what you're saying is such an important point. Like,
people are afraid to do it.
Well, and there's egos involved, and people need to literally say, what the hell is more important here? Is it me to look good, or do I want to be good, feel good, live good?
And do I want to be right, or do what's the most right, And so the key is you got to be a learner. You got to be a learner. You got to soak up learning. If you think you've arrived, if you think that you've got it known, man, you're in a dangerous place. And if you're willing to be 3 times a learner than you are the teacher, man, that's power. That's going to take to another level.
Absolutely. And, even, thousands of years ago, some of the greatest martial arts people, talk about the beginner's mind. And, do a search on Google if someone wants to get more of an understanding of the beginner's mind. But that is the place to always be when you're wanting to go to another level.
Yep.
Okay, so let me ask you, at the time that we're doing this interview, there is a lot of talk all over the place, the media, everything, predominantly because the majority of the people that are producing the news and the media have worked for organizations that do not support entrepreneurism at all, while simultaneously the majority of newspapers and large television networks are going bankrupt.
There's greatness all around them, and they're blind to it.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, so all of the media that's being produced out there is nothing but the negativity and the fear and the lack of confidence.
And then the one woman that finds her cat is the 10th story. So that literally happens.
Yeah, well, that's important, though.
That's important.
We got to hear about the cat. But so, there's this talk of financial crisis out there. I mean, and obviously people are losing jobs. We know people that have lost, their entire life savings and are really struggling. But what does financial crisis mean?
Well, for one, it just means that someone said it on the news. There were a lot of people, Joe, that didn't know we were in a recession at all until they went home and turned on the news. And the problem is, when they heard in the news that we're in a recession, they pick up the phone and they call their parents, they call their siblings, they call their closest friends. And their conversation turns to one that's negative, that gets people in a survival mode where they become so overly selfish that they don't think about creating value for someone else. They only think about surviving. So if you're engaged in anything and your whole objective and your entire context and goal and vision is to survive, what's the best outcome? Survival, never thriving, never real value creation, never thinking about others. It becomes so inwardly focused, and it derives worry to a high degree. And the problem with worry is most people become inactive, indecisive, because worry isn't an action. It's just a laziness almost. And I understand that there's plenty of pain out there, but this is a media-term financial crisis. And so you should look internally and say, if you've had money that you've lost in investments, that may have been the greatest thing that happened to you. I know that may seem interesting or even harsh to say, but the reason it could be the greatest thing is most Americans are gambling. They're gambling. They're not investing. Investing is a nice term to call the gambling that they're involved in. They don't know what they're investing in. They don't know their investment philosophies. And if you don't have a premise and if you're not core about what it is that you believe, guess what happens? Whoever's the most eloquent, charismatic, or best salesman creates your beliefs for you. And if their belief is selling you a product that they get paid a commission, that's what you're going to be subject to. So it's not a financial crisis at all. That's a byproduct. The core is the crisis comes down to this, and it's the same with debt or anything else, is that people have adopted a consumer condition. It's like a virus on a computer. And in our minds, somehow we feel entitled and we start to take more value than we create. That moves someone backwards. That puts someone so far out of freedom and really personal responsibility, that they start to lash out, they start to gossip, they start to get fearful and frustrated and angry, and they're not part of the solution because they're only worried about themselves. So the real crisis is human ingenuity. The real crisis is people not living and expressing their sole purpose. The real crisis is people believing in myths that are harmful. But enough people do it, it becomes popular enough that even though it's harming them, even though it doesn't resonate at their core that it's the right thing to do, they do it because they're worried what other people might think if they don't. I mean, let's face it, most entrepreneurs are considered crazy. How many people, Joe? How many people think you're a little bit nuts, think you're a little bit crazy?
Oh, a ton.
Right? We have to give up what other people think about us. We can't sit there and worry about other people's opinion because if they're in the consumer condition, it's not reality anyway. What you got to think about is how are you going to create value? How are you going to increase your abilities by, making deposits into your mental capital through learning, through events? I mean, a lot of people, the first thing they cut back on is knowledge. Is learning. And I think that wealth is built through language. And when our language turns to one of recession and scarcity, that inevitably it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. I think prosperity is self-fulfilling as well, based upon the conversations we have, based upon the value we look to create, based upon ignoring what's happening out there in the external world. I think that if we ignore that and say, what's happening in my personal economy? What can I do today? What are steps that I could take that would be progression, that would be helpful, that would make my life better? And if we focus on those controllables and those things that we can handle, that's how the solution comes about. That's how the world economy changes. But if we focus on, oh, look at this person this company went bankrupt, and so-and-so lost their job, and, and then people start getting irrational. Oh, there's no money out there. There's no jobs. Are you kidding me? The bigger the problem, the bigger the payoff. We're looking for leaders. If someone steps up in leadership right now, they're going to make so much money because more millionaires were made during the first Great Depression than any other time in the U.S. history. All we think about is the third of the people that were absolutely devastated. Sure, those pictures that we conjure up in our minds, people losing their homes, kids on the street, people starving, people trying to get a job. That was only a third of the population. A third of the population maintained was kind of the survival mode, right? It wasn't fun. It's like walking uphill or being on a treadmill, running, and you're not gaining momentum. But a third of the people that we really should pay attention to are the people that prospered. What did they know? What did they see? What did they do? And I think they had a very intimate relationship with how money really works, but more intimate in value creation and leadership. So can you step up? Can you go beyond what the conversations are and engage in the positive conversations? And what I mean by positive conversations is not the airy-fairy new age, oh, I'm a positive thinker, because you're not going to positively think your way to saving taxes and becoming a steward over your finances. It takes real financial literacy and knowledge. It takes real value creation. And if people get clear about that, money is going to follow. Money is going to be part of it. And the first money that everyone can focus on is the core relationships in their life. And what I mean by money is there's two types of it. One is the green dollars, and one is a feeling of significance or value that we appreciate. And appreciate means go up in value. Just like when real estate appreciates, it goes up in value. Same with our relationships. So go home and, someone you love, give them a hug. That's money. You both felt better in that moment. It increased your confidence. It increased your mindset. And that you didn't have to exchange dollars because you knew each other. Where people exchange dollars is when they're trying to access mental capital in a business world or get value from someone that they don't know. So this is how we exchange. Oh, yeah, I don't know you. Here's some money. But you and I, because we know each other, there's some ways that we exchange money. There's other ways that we just exchange, some ways we exchange dollars. Some ways we just exchange money because we know each other and we can benefit each other through connections, through conversations. So,
and also today I'm going to hit you up for paying for lunch, too.
Sweet. Okay.
But that's good.
Yeah, since you bought, all the greens and all the healthy food.
Yeah, well, I don't even know if we want that on the interview, but like coming out to Utah here, we're in Garrett's studio, beautiful building that you own, and last night you took me to Whole Foods, and we bought a bunch of green organic vegetables so we can make
put it on the flip cams. I'll get it up on YouTube.
It'll be powerful.
People can get a lesson in nutrition.
Exactly. Okay, well, a couple of things that I definitely want to cover.
A little dissertation there, sorry.
Yeah, no, hey, that's what makes these fun. This is important, too. You wrote this book, Killing Sacred Cows.
Right.
It's a New York Times bestseller. taken off. It's been to the top of the charts, #1 on Amazon, USA Today. I think it was it got up to the #2 best-selling book for all the categories of Amazon just recently.
Yep.
And it's got an interesting title. What do you mean by killing sacred cows?
So sacred cows are a lot of these beliefs or these myths that people get because of popularity, because of just this is the way that it's always been done, handed down generation to generation, so it's off the table. We don't even talk about it. So these sacred cows are actually destructive to our prosperity, to our potential, to our productivity. And I'm just saying, look, let's unveil this. Let's see what's really going on so that you can be empowered and you can start to take back control over your prosperity so that you can, overcome these destructive myths, these sacred cows, and really align with what's true and resonates with you. And so the book dismantles 9 different myths that are so prevalent in personal finance so that once people get beyond that, they can make more empowered and powerful choices.
Awesome. Now, if someone was to listen to your Nightingale Conant program, which they can get through Nightingale,
right.
What are they going to learn?
New Rules to Get Rich. What's nice about that versus sacred cows? Sacred cows some people will read it and go, so what do I do?
Right.
Some people tell me, man, there's a lot of action in there, but I'm like, well, I could only do so much in the number of pages. New Rules to Get Rich actually gives the tools and the modules and the systems for people to look and say, all right, I'm going to start a business. What are the questions I need to be asking? How do I go about doing that? There's a whole idea optimizer for that. There's a whole thing on how you do due diligence and understand what your real investment philosophy is and if the investment's right for you. Because I don't think the risk is in the investment. It's in the investor. Some investments are right for you that aren't right for me based upon your knowledge. So this tool very simply lets people assess that, create a benchmarking system that's inside of Nightingale, how people invest in themselves on a daily basis and what they can really do to structure that powerful hour that we talked about earlier. There's a whole system in there, pages of a workbook and an audio, so people can write down what's most powerful for them and actually create a schedule around that. How to find and live their soul purpose and what activities are the best for them to express in creating value in the world. What value creation really means and how they can find that out. There's even a lot of detail in some of the last CDs on what the different financial instruments are, what the different things you can invest in and what you need to be, what you need to understand before you ever invest there and how you build the right foundation before you invest. And, so it's a very comprehensive program and very, very new at the time that we're doing this interview. So I wrote it very relevant to what people are going through today to really take back the power of what they've given up to the financial institutions.
Yeah, so I would highly encourage everybody listening to go and get your book immediately. You can get it on Amazon, get it in any bookstore. It's Killing Sacred Cows, Garrett Gunderson, and also
in that book, they should the 401k hoax. If you've got a 401k, the very cover, I'm putting out a challenge which we're 100% successful with in the year and a half since the book's been out, of helping people to improve their situation. It wasn't hard at first because 401ks tanked, but actually dramatically improve the situation with those plans, what they can really do, how they can build a real blueprint. And so I personally put out a challenge where I'm taking on a couple of clients a month through 401k hoax and working with them and putting my money behind it and saying, if you don't do better, I'll give you your money back. Where else are you going to get a guarantee like that in a 401k?
Yeah, exactly. No, it's awesome. So everyone get a copy of Garrett's book. Also, you can get the Nightingale Conant program at Nightingale, NIGHTINGALE.com. And while you're there,
get rich. Yep.
Yeah, while you're there, buy my Piranha marketing program because it's the #1 selling marketing program at Nightingale.
Well, and that's a perfect story of how this even came about. I was at Strategic Coach, saw Piranha Marketing, bought it. I didn't even look at the price. I didn't know it was like the most expensive program that Nightingale offered, but I just bought it because I was like, okay, Piranha Marketing. I remember Dan Sullivan saying Joe Polish is someone I definitely need to get to know. I start listening to it, and then someone who read my book, which was me sharing mental capital, we got to share our mental capital out there, tells you, Joe, you got to meet Garrett. And then Dan Sullivan said the same thing in the same week. So he's like, yeah, I got to meet Garrett. So when I heard, hey, Joe Polish's office contacted, and there's been multiple people say that you guys need to connect, I was like, I'm all about it. I was just finishing reading your program. I was writing my reports. I was doing all the things that you talked about in the program, but thinking like, am I doing this right? So that was great. And within moments, you introduced a bunch of relationships to me. It immediately improved my business because of that hour-long conversation. We did another hour-long conversation. I said, all right, I'm joining 25K. Went out there, went to the inauguration. It's been a massive impact in my life and in my business just knowing you and your expertise and your willingness to share and create value, from a perspective of me, I mean, you've been a mentor, and I know that's scary to put on record. But
yes, I like this. So keep going.
but you've definitely been a mentor, and you've been a great example of value creation and just a willingness to utilize your abilities and talents to improve someone else's life. And I think it takes an extraordinary amount of confidence, because some people don't do that because they're afraid to share, or they're afraid to acknowledge or put someone else out there. And you're just really willing to do that and share in a big way. And I think that's a huge part of your success. And it was funny because the day we talked about the mastermind group, I was working out, I was riding my bike that morning, listening to my iPod, and you were talking on Piranha Marketing about the effectiveness and how important mastermind groups were. So I thought, I pretty much for sure have to do this mastermind group. I'm listening to you, you're talking about it. I'm like, this is great. This was meant to be, and it's been a great ride. So thanks.
No, thank you. And vice versa. And I think if anyone actually even looked at us as a case study of what we do to help each other, it actually is a great model that people could actually apply in all situations. Because really, it's all about, and I have to give Dan Sullivan credit for this, is he has this process called a bigger future. And where if you really want to get what you want in life, find people that have bigger futures and help them reach their bigger future. And in the process, in helping them, guess what? They're going to help you. Not in all situations, and you don't do it in a manipulative way saying, oh, I'm going to be totally, make sure that if I do this for them, they're going to do this for me. I mean, you simply go out there and you help other people. And in the process of doing that, life gives to the giver and takes from the taker.
Yep.
Now, before we wrap up, I mean, there's so much that people will learn and derive if they actually pursue reading your book, listening to your Nightingale program, and this will probably be just the beginning of future interviews and wisdom that I share with my Genius Network, because we spend a lot of time together, and we're going to continue to do that. You're actually speaking at my conference this year, so anyone listening, go to joepolish.com and you can get a link to my conference that I'm doing, and you can see Garrett speak there. And
I love your conferences. You sent me a DVD of them, and I watched the whole thing all the way through, and it was amazing to see even some of your speakers and watching. They'd say, how many people have done this, and like tons of people raise their hands telling amazing stories. So just to watch that real impact, that it's not just a bunch of speakers speaking, but like, when Bill Phillips was there, and he's like, how many people did the Body for Life Challenge? A bunch of hands go up, guys getting up. Oh, yeah, I lost 100-some pounds. I was just like, this is amazing, because, you help Bill out a lot. Then he comes and speaks, and it translates to a whole industry their health is improved. That they were just looking to make some more money maybe when they first got involved with you, and that's what I love about it.
You know what? I mean, and I usually don't say this publicly. I mean, what I do is I sell people what they want, but I give them what they need.
Yeah, I like that.
We intrigue them with what it is that they want, but the things that I think will really help them. And you do the same thing. I mean, that's what we do as marketers. You got to catch the fish, and so you want to have the right sort of bait, but it's really what do you do to nurture the fish, not just chop its head off. And a lot of people that sell programs and stuff, they their main focus is, let's just sell some crap in a box. And one of the reasons that our programs at Nightingale, as an example, do extremely well is because they're really darn valuable. I mean, there's a lot of wisdom.
Right. It's funny because a lot of the people at Nightingale are like, oh yeah, I've got Joe's program in my personal library, and then I get emails like, I'm taking this one for my personal library, and hey, what did you mean here? And even when I was recording, they're interrupting me multiple times. Hey, come here. In my situation, so it's fun to watch, because even they hear so many people, and we're both just saying, let's just put everything in these programs rather than holding anything back. That's what I like about it. You just put it out there, and you figure you'll just keep growing and building. So some people, I better save all this and make people pay thousands of dollars before they ever get this gem.
Right,
exactly. I think that people need to learn that, because like you said, the givers give and they're going to get a lot more. The takers take and they get a lot less.
Exactly, and people don't get that simple thing. So I mean, starting today,
that's money right there. There's the real relationship with money right there.
Absolutely, and I would encourage everyone listening, share this interview with anyone in your life that you feel it would resonate with, because Garrett, you gave out some tremendously valuable and powerful wisdom and perspective that I absolutely think this interview is worth really listening to over and over again. There's just a lot of good stuff to think about. Now, a couple things, again, before we wrap up. There's people that will be listening that are in debt, and there's a lot of programs out there that, are supposed to help people get out of debt, and you say that none of them actually solve that problem at the root or core. And you've kind of talked about the reasons for some of those root or core problems. It's actually, what do you do if you're in debt?
Well, let me simplify the hell out of this and just make it so apparent. And no one has to write this down. You'll always remember it. You can go out there and you can try and do all this kind of stuff. You could try all these techniques, pay down certain things, manage budget, all the programs, do consolidations, all that kind of stuff. Those are just symptoms, though. The root or the core comes down to this. Look into your life. You wouldn't be in debt if you were producing more than you consume. Your issue is you're not looking to create enough value versus the value that you're taking. So forget about keeping up with the Joneses. Forget about everyone else and just look at yourself and say, how in the world can I start creating more value than I consume? That's the producer paradigm. That's a paradigm of abundance, and that's when you become a true producer. So you got to tap more into your abilities and utilize that. The second thing, the second half of that is the consumer condition. People that are in debt have a case of the consumer condition just like a virus. Now, this doesn't make them bad people. Many times they didn't know what the value really was out there in the marketplace, or they made a mistake because they were gambling with their investing or with their business. You got to learn the lesson, and then you got to always measure, am I creating more value than I consume? And always look to add more value, because that's the core. That's the root. And the rest of it will take care of itself. It's not just technique. You got to get to the premise. You got to get to the principle. You got to get to the foundation.
Well, when we were in Vietnam recently, we're talking a communist country, and there's more entrepreneurism going on in Vietnam than I even saw in a lot of levels in America, and it was fascinating. And what was most...
You and I could make a multi-billion-dollar difference within a week if we had their attention.
Right. Exactly.
There's been such a lack of innovation, and even just market distribution would...
Oh, yeah, I know. It was so funny. We went down. We've got videos of this, so I'm going to have to post on YouTube.
17 people selling pineapples in a row.
Yeah. Shoes, a whole
No pineapples
street.
Forever.
Yeah.
Then like baguettes for a mile. Then 30 miles before you see them again.
Product placement. Yeah. It was fascinating. But what it did do more than anything for me is give me such an immense amount of gratitude and appreciation for this amazing country that I live in, which is the United States. And
innovation and sharing of ideas, and how much do we have access to at no charge? We could be so resourceful with the internet. Absolutely. With a phone call, with the helping someone out, and you don't have to have $1 right now to become a millionaire in this economy. Today, you could actually be in the negative. The key is, will you just learn to be a producer and find out where you're really gifted?
Well, right. So, the value to place here is education and learning, and that's what, of course, anyone that's listening to this, we're already preaching to the choir, because they wouldn't be listening to this if they didn't want capabilities. This is not about giving people motivation and inspiration, although they get some of those things. It's really about giving you capabilities.
They've got to translate it to people. This is the key. You've mentioned it like 3 times on this. Share this with other people. One person that's in the group, and she's doing a presentation tomorrow that I've coached for years. She did a study of all of her clients. She works with pretty high income, high net worth clients in California, really renowned advisor. And she did a study. It wasn't income, net worth, profession. None of these were the key characteristic of who was the most successful in the programs with her. And she pays the best attention to her clients and does the best testing and making sure she's creating value. The number one thing that made a difference, the number one thing, and this was the common denominator with every single one, is who referred her the most people that were of their caliber or greater. Because it engaged in a conversation. It created that community that we talked about. So you got to share this. You got to create this conversation. You got to have people understand this language and think this way so that you can engage rather than just talking about the bad news. So I think you nailed it.
Yeah, thank you. Now, for someone that is at least in the United States, again, going back to Vietnam, a lot of people that complain about how tough things are. It's like, man, go to a communist country, go to a third world country. You'll really see that from a perspective standpoint, we live in a fantasy world compared to how some people live. Now, having said that, there's a lot of people that are out there struggling, and there's a lot of people that have situations that I don't have. For instance, a single mother. What do you say to someone like that that's in debt, that has lots of responsibilities with the family? I know that a lot of the advice is still the same, but is there anything differently you would say to someone that's out there going, I'm working my ass off.
Yeah.
I'm really trying to do the best I can. This all makes sense, but I'm feeling a little discouraged. What would you say to that person?
And a single mom. I'm married and we've got a couple of kids, and I just think, the role as a two in a family, handling just 2 kids. You got single moms with more kids than that. So there's no doubt that's extraordinary circumstance. But you can be more powerful than the circumstance. The key is taking some time, and this is a little bit hard for you to think about as you're this busy, but taking time for critical thinking, taking time for developing your mental capital, because otherwise you get so caught up in the busyness that you don't translate it to productiveness. And so we have more available to us here in the United States than any other country. And if you get overwhelmed because you're a single mom, you're working, and then you're taking care of kids, then you stop taking care of yourself. And you've got to have time for yourself. So, number one, be willing to utilize other people. Be willing when other people are willing to help, take them up on it. A lot of, no, I got to do it on my own. No, it's my kids. To be a good mom, I got to do this. And they don't take care of themselves. So it's harder for them to produce at that high level. And it almost seems counterintuitive in the moment when it's like, wait, I've got to invent another hour? How am I going to do that? How in the world am I going to have another hour? Look at all the things that are going on. Look, if you got up an hour earlier, you're going to have more energy if you meditate and you exercise throughout the rest of the day. And it's going to create, it's going to create more clarity. And you got to engage in the right conversation. You got to get around the right people, and you got to utilize the relationship capital you have with other people that are willing to help you out, so that you can recover, you can rejuvenate, and that you can think clearly about how you're going to deliver more value to the marketplace.
Awesome.
And that's the key.
Awesome. Great. Well, last thing I'm going to ask you then is if you could define true wealth.
Okay. So true wealth, it means enjoyment and happiness today and in the future, which you should consider with your investments. But true wealth is really in 5 areas. Finance is part of it. If you're out there saying money's not important, one of 2 things have happened. Either one, you have no money because it's not important, or you do have enough money that it's not as important, right? But if you're just kind of in the middle of the path, you're not going to say that. Money, a lot of people say it because they're embarrassed. Oh, money's not that important. They don't have it. Look, if you're saying something's not important, it's going to evade you. It's got to be important. The second thing is sole purpose. This is key to wealth. You got to be living, understanding, and contributing with your sole purpose, understanding your purpose in life. What are your passions? What are your gifts? What are your values? What are your roles? And how can you best express who you are in the world? The third one is mental, your mentality, your intellect, how you view the world. That's part of wealth. If you had all the money in the world, but you constantly lived in scarcity, who cares? It's not going to be worth it. The fourth thing is physical well-being, your nutrition, your exercise. Your body is part of this, it's your energy. It's the vehicle for you and a tool for you to deliver value. And then the fifth aspect of true wealth is social. So that has to do with relationships, legacy, leadership, so recreation. So financial, sole purpose, mental, physical, and social. And here's the test. Money's the least important of those, although it's very important. Because would you give up all the relationships that you have for all the money in the world? Now, there might be a few relationships you'd say, okay, yeah, I'm good. Just go ahead and take them. But, the answer for most people is obviously no. Would you give up your health for all the money in the world? Would you give up the right mindset and the ability to learn for all the money in the world? And would you give up the ability to do things you're passionate about for all the money in the world? So true wealth encompasses those 5 tracks.
Awesome. Well, so if you resonated with any of this and you've got some perspective and you want more perspective and you want to keep the momentum going, one of the things that I dislike more than anything, Garrett, is when I watch like a very interesting documentary or program, and it could be about, bad things that are being done to other people, and they at the end, they don't really tell you what to do in order to solve the problem. They don't give you continuing direction. And I think a lot of seeds have been planted here with this interview. I would encourage people, while the momentum is there, pick up a copy of Garrett's book, Killing Sacred Cows. Also go to Nightingale, NIGHTINGALE.com and get Garrett's program.
And I'll contribute some things just, and this is funny because this is what you taught me. I have a 24-hour recorded line where I've got a message on there.
24-hour free recorded message, yeah.
Yep. 888-346-6158. That's 888-346-6158. I have a free investor's guide on there. So this will help people learn, am I investing properly, and what are the things that I need to know, and, you know, what are the economics behind things, but it's in a very easily to read fashion, common language, but your financial literacy for most people will probably double just reading that one report. So that's 888-346-6158, and that's something that, you know, all it takes is action, and prosperity takes action. It doesn't mean that you have to write a check right away. I'm happy for you to buy the book. I'm happy for you to buy New Rules to Get Rich. And, you know, if you listen to the toll-free number, you can find out about a teleseminar I do once a month that gives people more information and find out how to engage and how we could help create value for you.
Awesome. Well, any other websites or anything you'd like to give out for people to...
There's the blog on killingsacredcows.com is very valuable, and to learn more about what we do, if you go to book resources, there's a lot of the different programs. I have a personal site, Garrett B. Gunderson, that's more informational, my background, some of my stories, some, you know, I have some giveaways like newsletters and the free report and how to get access to the teleseminar, but also what are the philosophies? What are, you know, how did I do some of these things, and how would that translate to value to other people? And just to get to know me as a dude that grew up in Price, Utah, and as a coal miner's son, and recognize that I had to be resourceful. I wasn't just handed resources, but my parents were very resourceful at having me understand the capabilities that I had, and that was a big difference. And so I very much so want to help people align their investing with their purpose. And if that would be the contribution I could do over my lifetime, I think it would transform the way that we see money in the world and the way that financial institutions did business with us.
Awesome. Well, any famous last words?
Dollars follow value. Go create some.
Great. I like it. Thank you so much, Garrett. This was fantastic. To all our listeners, again, I encourage you, share this with other people. This will only be the starting point. You'll hear more from me and Garrett in the future. Come and see Garrett speak at my conference this year. You can check out joepolish.com. If you want more interviews, check out geniusnetwork.com, and I will post some videos and whatnot.
Get those interviews. I mean, I've listened to Richard Rossi's interview multiple times because it helped me with employees. I've listened to Dean's interviews, and I think that we're very aligned in so much of our philosophy. I've listened to the interview you did with Richard Branson, Pamela, Hugh Downs. I mean, you know, you've had so many good interviews. It's just, this is great to hear from people's perspective in a more human way than a book or, you know, just on stage. It gets more of that human element to it. So.
Right, and if someone needs an excuse to listen to them and you're like, well, I don't have time, well, why, you know, get on an exercise bike or take a walk or hike a mountain and listen to the news. That way you'll be consuming wonderful knowledge, which will be exercise for your brain, and you'll simultaneously be doing something for your body also. So.
You don't have time not to do it because it'll be effort without result unless you feed your brain.
Yep, I agree. Thank you so much, Garrett.
Thank you.
Hello, this is Joe Polish. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this interview. I hope you found it very useful. Please give me your feedback on all of the interviews that you listen to. I'd love to hear your feedback so we can always deliver a great program for you. Our website is www.joepolish.com, and we also have a Joe Polish Recommends section, so you can take a lot of the ideas and concepts that you hear on my Genius Network interview series and apply them to your business and find vendors and resources. You can go to joepolish.com to find that information and click on the Joe Polish Recommends section. And also, if you would like to find out about more interviews and invest in more useful Genius Network series interviews, go to www.geniusnetwork.com. Thanks, and eat your competition alive.